There comes a moment in every life when silence is louder than any noise. When you realize you've been waiting not for a chance, not for a break, but for yourself. Waiting to become the person your soul can finally trust. If you feel lost, if life seems stuck, let me tell you, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're ready to rise, not to chase success, but to embody greatness. The truth is simple. Life won't get better until you do. Welcome to Unlocking Wisdom, a place where ancient truths meet modern life. Here, we don't chase hacks or shortcuts, we awaken the wisdom within and step boldly into the life we were born to live. The wake-up call within. The first battle is you. Let me speak plainly. Because you deserve truth without decoration. Your life will not improve until you do. I'm not here to flatter you. I'm not here to convince you that you're already enough if enough means staying comfortable in patterns that are slowly draining the fire from your bones. I'm here to remind you of what you've forgotten. You were not born to settle. You were born to ascend. Let me tell you something I learned not from books, but from battlefields, internal and external. No external revolution will ever matter until there is an internal one. I led men through storms, wars, and impossible odds. But the fiercest war one ever fought was with myself. My doubt, my rage, my fatigue, my temptation to give in. And if you're honest with yourself, you've been in that war too, fighting silently, behind the smile, behind the job title, behind the routines that look stable but feel hollow. You want life to get better? Then stop blaming the weather. Stop waiting for others to understand your pain. Stop chasing more, hoping it will fix what's still broken within. You must understand this. Your outer world is always echoing your inner world. And if your life feels stuck, it's not because life is cruel. It's because there's a version of you trying to emerge, and you've been resisting it. I ask you now, when was the last time you truly listened to your own inner voice? Not the voice of fear or shame or urgency, but the one whispering, it's time to stop pretending, time to stop numbing, time to rise not with noise, but with conviction. The first step isn't action, it's awareness. The awareness that you have more in you. That comfort has become a prison, that routine has become avoidance, that the life you dream of is not behind a mountain, it's behind a decision. And here's the deeper truth. You don't need more chances. You don't need more time. You need more of you, the real you, the you that's been hiding behind old wounds and false masks. So let me ask, what have you been avoiding? What emotion have you buried? What truth have you been too afraid to speak? Because until you face it, you will keep circling the same desert, calling it destiny. But destiny doesn't show up to the passive. It bows to the courageous. You want to make your life better? Then you must become braver, more honest, more present, more willing to feel what hurts so you can finally heal what's held you back. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. But comfort has never built strength. Comfort has never unlocked potential. Comfort has never birthed greatness. Let me tell you, what has? Pain, reflection, stillness, accountability, and a quiet, relentless decision to rise again. So today, make this vow to yourself. I will stop waiting. I will stop outsourcing my transformation. I will stop negotiating with my lesser self. I will become better, even if the world doesn't clap, even if no one understands. Even if it means leaving behind what once felt safe. Because this is the beginning not of a new chapter, but of a new self, the version of you that doesn't need to prove. Because you embody what others spend their lives chasing. The version of you that walks into rooms and shifts energy, not by force, but by presence. The version of you who stopped asking for permission and started living like your life is the answer. And it is. You are the answer to your own prayers, but only when you stop hiding, only when you stop settling, only when you start honoring the whispers that have followed you for years. You were made for more, so breathe deep, stand tall, and start the journey inward, because when you get better everything does. Your peace, your power, your relationships, your voice, your leadership, your ability to walk into chaos and still carry calm. That begins not in the next opportunity, but in this moment. Return to the quiet, reconnecting with intuition and inner truth. There is a kind of power this world forgets. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't need to dominate. It knows. And what it knows is that clarity doesn't come from the noise. It comes from returning to yourself. In my early days as a young soldier and farmer, I spent more time in silence than in strategy. Because when the world is loud, your soul must grow quiet. When the storms rage outside, you must learn to listen inside. If your life feels like it's rushing past you, if your days blur into one another, if you lie awake feeling like you're drifting from something essential, let me tell you this with all the authority and love I have in me. You're not lost. You've just been living too long without listening. Not to others, not to expectations, but to your own inner knowing. Yes, that quiet compass within you. The one that still remembers what you came here for. You see, most people today are overfed with opinions and starving for wisdom. They scroll, they chase, they consume, they compare. And in doing so, they forget themselves. They forget that your greatest power is not found in doing more. It's found in becoming more aware. More still, more centered, more honest about what's actually happening inside. Because here's the truth most people avoid. You don't have a clarity problem. You have a connection problem. And to reconnect, you must do something rare. You must slow down. Not as weakness, but as warfare against a world that numbs you into noise. You must learn to sit with yourself. To ask, what is my soul trying to tell me right now? What truth have I ignored for too long? What do I need to release before I can move forward? You were not created to live by accident. You were born with a compass already inside you, but you must choose to trust it again. And that, my friend, is hard work. Because intuition doesn't come dressed in certainty. It comes as a whisper, one that often tells you to walk away from things you once prayed for. It comes to nudge you toward the uncomfortable, the healing, the quiet surrender of control. And it takes courage more than most will ever dare summon. But let me tell you what happens when you do, when you return to that place of listening. You begin to live aligned. You stop fighting yourself in every decision. You stop betraying your gut just to keep people happy. You stop asking the world for validation you already carry inside your chest. And then peace arrives, not the peace of a perfect life, but the peace of an honest one. The kind where your soul and your steps are finally walking in the same direction. In my own life, I learned this through fire. I stood on battlefields where men screamed for answers. But it was in the woods, under the weight of silence and stars, that I found the next step. It was always within me. I simply had to trust it. So now I ask you, when did you stop listening? When did you trade your soul's wisdom for the noise of the world? When did you forget that you don't need permission to choose what feels true? Because every time you silence your intuition, you lose a piece of your strength. And every time you honor it, you remember who you are. This is not about religion. It's about relationship with the part of you that knows, without knowing how, with the stillness that speaks louder than fear, with the voice that's been with you since the beginning. And I promise you this, when you trust it, it will lead you to places your logic could never dream of. So here is what I urge you to do today. Unplug. Turn down the volume. Let silence be your sanctuary again. Ask the deeper questions. Wait for the answers. And when they come not with lightning, but with stillness, follow them. Because the path to becoming better doesn't start with changing your habits. It starts with coming home to your own wisdom. And when you do, you stop chasing peace because you are peace. You stop looking for the next step because you feel it rise within you. And most of all, you stop asking the world who you are because you remember. The Mind Reforged, reprogram your thoughts, release control, master emotion. If your life is the garden, then your thoughts are the soil. You can't plant seeds of greatness in ground polluted by fear, doubt, and stories that no longer serve you. And yet, that's what most people do every day. They expect growth while watering weeds. Let me be blunt, your mind is not broken, but it is deeply conditioned by old wounds, loud voices, and silent disappointments. And if you do not take authority over it, your mind will repeat the past, even when your soul is ready for more. You say you want freedom, but have you freed your thoughts? You say you want peace, but have you confronted the mental loops that keep you afraid, angry, exhausted? You don't need a new life, you need a new lens. Because until your mind believes you're worthy of more, you will sabotage every door that opens. Your life will always reflect what you believe you deserve. That's not positive thinking, that's mental programming. And today, it must change. Let me ask you, what story have you been living out without even realizing it? That you're not enough, that you must earn love by pleasing everyone, that if you fail once, you are a failure forever. These stories were not born in truth. They were born in trauma, in misunderstanding, in survival. And it is not your fault that you inherited them, but it is your responsibility to rewrite them now. Because if you do not reprogram your mind, it will keep dragging your life in directions your heart never asked to go. So here is the beginning. Observe your thoughts like you are not your thoughts. Because you're not. You are the awareness behind them. You are the creator, not the reaction. You do not have to believe every thought you think. You do not have to obey every fear that shouts. You do not have to let old thinking write your new chapter. But to shift your mind, you must learn to release control. Yes, control. That illusion you've clung to. You tried to predict, to perfect, to protect, but in doing so, you've become rigid, anxious, disconnected. Let me tell you what real power is. It's surrender, not giving up, giving over. Giving over your need to control what isn't yours to carry. Giving over your fear of the unknown. Giving over your grip on the past. Because control isn't peace, it's panic wearing a uniform. You must learn to trust what is not yet seen. You must allow life to move through you, not just around you. And while you release control, you must take command of the one thing that shapes everything else, your emotions. Your emotions are not weakness. They are signals, but they are not your steering wheel. You cannot let temporary emotion dictate permanent direction. Too many people live on emotional autopilot. They react, they lash out, they numb, they suppress, and then they wonder why they feel like strangers to themselves. But you are not meant to be a slave to your emotions. You are meant to master them. How? Not by suppressing them, but by meeting them head-on with compassion and courage. When anger rises, pause. Ask what it's protecting. When fear comes, breathe. Ask what it's warning you of. When sadness visits, sit with it. Ask what still needs to be mourned, because beneath every emotion is a message. And beneath every message, a part of you longing to be understood. The better you become at hearing that part, the stronger you become at leading yourself. And that's the mission, to lead yourself where your higher self already lives. To train your mind like a soldier, to loosen the grip of control like a monk. To command your emotions like a king with dignity, with patience, with purpose. So let this be your declaration. I am no longer ruled by outdated thoughts. I am no longer reacting, I am responding. I choose clarity over chaos. I choose grounded power over anxious control. I choose emotional mastery over emotional avoidance. Because the future you're trying to build cannot be reached by the thinking that built your past. You must interrupt the pattern. You must reforge your mindset. You must rise above the noise again and again. No one else can do it for you. But the moment you do it for yourself, you become unstoppable. And not because life becomes easy, but because you become stronger than the storm. Reignite the fire. awaken passion, overcome fear, and build resilience, there is a fire inside you. I don't say that to flatter you. I say it because it is the truth of your design. You may have covered it, you may have dulled it, but it is still there glowing in the ash, waiting. And now, you must reignite it. You were not born to simply exist. You were born to burn with purpose, to live with conviction, to rise with vision, to face the dark and declare, I am not afraid. But somewhere along the way, you traded that fire for safety. You made comfort the god of your decisions. You let fear disguise itself as logic. And slowly, almost without noticing, your soul began to shrink. I know this because I've lived it. I have stood on battlefields both real and within, and I've seen what happens. When a man forgets his fire, he becomes a ghost of what he could be. He walks without direction. He speaks without conviction. He waits for someone else to hand him a life he was meant to forge. But here's the hard truth. No one will hand you the life you want. You must build it. And to build it, you must remember the one thing stronger than fear, your fire, your passion, your calling. So let me ask you, what makes your blood stir? What thought won't leave you, no matter how many times you bury it? What dream do you silence with excuses, even though it keeps rising in your chest like a sunrise you cannot stop? That is not random. That is not fantasy. That is your soul speaking. That is your fire trying to wake you up. The question is not whether it exists. The question is, will you honor it? Because the moment you say yes, not to a result, not to applause, but to the calling itself, your entire life begins to shift. But fear will come. It always does when fire returns. Fear will whisper, what if you fail? What if they laugh? What if it's too late? What if you're not enough? And when it does, I want you to remember something. Fear is not truth. Fear is a test. It is a shadow sent to see if you've learned how to carry light. It does not need to be erased. It needs to be faced. And when you face fear with fire, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with what's holding you back. You stop shrinking to fit into small spaces. You stop hiding your brilliance so that others feel more comfortable. In their mediocrity, you become dangerous not to others, but to everything that tried to keep you small. That is resilience. Not just enduring life, but answering it with strength. Not just surviving storms, but walking through them with purpose. You see, resilience is not born in ease. It is forged in fire. And some of your greatest strengths will come from the moments you thought would break you. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the silence, the failure, the dark nights of the soul where no one applauded, no one understood, and no one saved you. But you kept going. That is resilience. So don't resent the hard chapters. They are the training ground for your greatness. You do not become powerful by avoiding pain. You become powerful by transforming it. That anger you've buried, use it to fuel your mission. That fear you feel, let it sharpen your focus. That heartbreak, let it teach you how deeply you are capable of loving and rising again. Because your story is not one of easy wins. It's one of relentless becoming. And every time you choose growth over fear, vision over comfort, faith over doubt, you step further into the person you were born to be. So light the fire. Let the world feel the heat of your purpose. Let your actions speak louder than your fear. Let your resilience become a song that every storm learns to fear. You don't have time to wait. You don't have time to settle. You don't have time to keep shrinking for a life that no longer fits the size of your spirit. The world needs the real you, not the polished version, not the version built for approval, but the raw, honest, fierce you. The one who knows that greatness isn't something you chase, it's something you choose. Every single day, no matter how tired you are, no matter how afraid you feel, no matter how long it takes. And the beautiful thing is, you already have what it takes. It's not out there. It's in you. It's always been. Build with intention, habits, energy, and the power of daily alignment. It's not enough to dream, not enough to awaken passion, Not even enough to face your fears and say, I am ready. Because readiness without rhythm fades, fire without form burns out, and purpose without practice is just poetry. You must now build. Build a life with hands that are no longer shaking from doubt. Build a future with bricks made from discipline. Build momentum not through bursts of motivation, but through the sacred, quiet power of daily alignment. Let me speak plainly. You don't become your best self once and for all. You become your best self every morning or not at all. Your life is the sum of what you repeatedly do, not what you hope for, not what you post about, not what you say you'll start next Monday, but what you actually choose, moment by moment, especially when no one is watching. And I tell you this as a man who has stood at the helm of revolution. Discipline is your ally. The habits you build are the votes you cast for the future you desire. If you want clarity, create space for silence. If you want energy, honor your sleep, your food, your breath. If you want growth, consume wisdom, not distraction. Too many people wait to feel good before they do good. But here's the secret the world will never tell you. You act your way into better emotions. You do not feel your way into better actions. You become inspired by doing. You build confidence by showing up. You shape identity by staying in motion, especially when it's inconvenient. So take a long look at your daily rhythm. What is it training you to become? Who are you rehearsing to be through repetition, distraction, and excuses you cannot want? The life of a champion while living with the habits of a wanderer. This is where the gap is for most. They have vision but no vessel. They have energy but no structure. They crave growth but still repeat the same loops that sabotage their becoming. So let me give you a gift. Build sacred rituals, not routines, rituals. Acts of intention that root your energy, ignite your clarity, and anchor your values every single day. Wake early not because it's fashionable, but because it's foundational. Journal not to impress, but to remember who you are. Move your body not just for fitness, but for freedom. Speak affirmations not to manifest fantasy, but to program truth. And protect your mornings like your life depends on it, because it does not. The way you begin your day is how you train your brain to show up for the rest of your life. And while you build structure, you must also guard your energy like the treasure it is. Because your energy is currency. What you give it to grows. What drains it shapes you. You think success is about time. No, it's about energy management. You don't need more hours. You need more presence in the hours you already have. And to have presence, you must remove the noise. Too much screen, too much comparison, too much yes when you mean no. All of it bleeds you. You were not created to be constantly available. You were created to be constantly aligned. So ask yourself daily, what feeds my energy? What steals my focus? What habits bring me home to myself? And here lies the gold. Live on purpose, not on autopilot. Let your days be shaped by design, not default. Let your habits become devotion. Let your life become a declaration of what truly matters, not in your mouth, but in your schedule. Because success is not the result of one massive decision, it is the result of thousands of tiny ones. Made with clarity, made with conviction, made with intention. So stop waiting for motivation. Build rhythm. Build order. Build devotion to the future you say you want. It will not be loud. It will not be glamorous. But it will be sacred, and it will change you. Love yourself. Live honestly. Walk your own path. There comes a moment in every life where the mirrors of the world must be shattered. Not gently, not slowly, but with one clear strike of truth. Because the reflections you've lived by what others think, what they expect, what they say you should do are not who you are. They are echoes. They are masks. And if you keep living for their approval, you'll spend your life forgetting your own face. Let me tell you something that may rattle your heart. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to belong to yourself. And until you love yourself without condition, without performance, Without disguise, life will feel like a room where you can't breathe. I say this not with judgment, but with compassion, because I see how many people are exhausted. From performing. They smile when they want to scream. They nod when their soul says no. They shrink so others feel comfortable. They hide their fire to keep the peace. But peace without self-respect is not peace. It is self-abandonment, and no amount of success, applause, or validation can heal the wound of a life lived out of alignment. So let this be the beginning of a new vow. I will no longer betray myself to be accepted by others. If you want to live a life that is deeply true, if you want to become someone your soul is proud of, you must come home to yourself. And that starts with one powerful, radical act: self-love. Not the love they market in books or online quotes. Not the kind that says, take a bath and move on. No, I mean the kind of love that looks your wounds in the eye and says, I'm not leaving. I see your mess and I still choose you. Because if you do not choose yourself, the world will keep choosing for you. So love yourself enough to heal. Love yourself enough to confront the voices inside that say you're not enough. Love yourself enough to not just get by, but to rise. Your past may have written your story in pain, but your present has the pen now. You get to rewrite the narrative. You get to unlearn shame. You get to forgive what once defined you. But more than that, you get to be honest. Honest about what you want. Honest about who you are. Honest about the path that is calling you, even if no one else walks it. Because your path is yours. It will not always be approved. It will not always be understood. But it will always be sacred if it is true. So stop apologizing for your light. Stop explaining your dreams to those who are committed to smallness. Stop asking permission to be who you already are. You are not here to impress the world. You are here to impact it. And the greatest impact you will ever make is walking in truth. The kind of truth that may cost you some people. The kind of truth that may strip away your old identity. The kind of truth that leaves you standing alone but finally free. You see, the path of authenticity is not paved in comfort. It is paved in courage. Courage to be disliked. Courage to be seen in your fullness. Courage to take the road that only you were made to walk. And here's what they don't tell you when you walk that path. Even when it's lonely, even when it's dark, even when your legs shake, you become light. You become the kind of soul who doesn't just talk about freedom, but embodies it. You become trustworthy to yourself. You sleep well, you rise strong, you stop chasing, and start attracting because you've become magnetic with alignment. And that is when everything changes. So, I ask you now, are you ready to love yourself enough to be fully you? Are you ready to walk away from the version of life that looks good but feels hollow? Are you ready to tell the truth, not just with your words, but with how you live? Because the world does not need more perfect people. It needs real ones. Ones who are willing to show up raw. Ones who are done with pretending. Ones who say, this is who I am. This is where I stand. And this is the path I choose. Let that be you. Become who you were meant to be, not for approval, but for purpose. This is where it all comes together. Not just the words I've spoken, but the truths you've begun to remember. The fire you've started to rekindle. The strength you've uncovered beneath all the noise. And the voice inside you, the one that had been whispering all along, now growing louder, clearer, unafraid. This is the part where you rise, not to prove, not to please, but because you finally understand you are not here to be accepted. You are here to be aligned. You were never called to become a copy. You were created to become a force, an original, a revolution in motion, a quiet storm of purpose that doesn't ask for permission because it was born with authority. But for too long, the world taught you to shrink, to second guess, to achieve for applause, to become what others could understand, even if it meant losing what your soul always knew. And now, that part of your story is done. You are no longer living for approval. You are becoming for purpose. Because greatness isn't a destination. It's a decision repeated in the dark when no one claps, no one sees, and no one congratulates you. But you keep going anyway. You rise not for validation. You rise because you were born to. And every time you show up for your growth, you are rewriting your legacy, not just for you, but for the ones who will come after you. The ones watching you quietly, the ones who will one day whisper, because they rose, I believed I could too. That's impact. That's legacy. That's what happens when you stop chasing a finish line and start becoming a foundation. So now here's the final truth I will give you. You do not need to earn your worth. You need to remember it. You do not need to find your voice. You need to use it. You do not need to wait for the right moment. This is the moment. Because here's what no one tells you. Transformation doesn't begin in your results. It begins in your standards. What you tolerate, what you no longer entertain, what you stop giving your energy to, because it no longer serves the next level of you. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about no longer allowing the old version of you to keep writing the story you were meant to outgrow. You owe it to yourself to stop dimming, to stop deferring your power to tomorrow, to stop asking life to be easier, and instead become someone who is stronger. You've come far. You've felt the burn of facing your fear. You've tasted the discomfort of letting go of who you were. You've walked through shadows, wrestled with doubt, and still chosen to rise. And now it's time to own it. Own your healing. Own your voice. Own your story, not just the wins, but the wounds. The moments you thought would break you, but didn't. Because your story is not just one of survival. It's a story of becoming. And if you keep showing up, not to impress, but to align, you will look back one day and realize you didn't just change your life. You became someone who changes others. You'll no longer measure your worth by what you achieve. You'll measure it by who you became to get there. Because that's what it's always been about. Not the destination, not the titles, not the applause, but who you turned into in the process. You dash raw, real, unshakable. You awake, alive, on purpose. You walking with power, not because the road is smooth, but because your roots run deep. So this is the final call. Become better, not for the world's praise, but for your own peace. Not for validation, but for vision. Not for appearance, but for alignment. And when you do, when you rise into the person you were always meant to be, the life you desire will no longer feel distant. It will be the life you are living. If this message awakened something inside you, if it stirred your heart, or gave you clarity, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe to Unlocking Wisdom for more powerful guidance that helps you rise into your purpose, because your journey is just beginning.